Welcome. I hope you guys are fine this morning. Um, yeah, as I told you guys last week that I would see you after the test. So the test week ended last week. So this week we're going to according to our learning guide, we have to cover some content before obviously you go on holidays for I think it's for a week, ne? And starting I think it is Friday or the Saturday. Guys, I don't know if you guys can hear me, but where I am, there are construction activities going on, and I'm not sure that you guys can hear me clearly and properly. If you cannot hear me, please let me know. If the noise is too much, you should let me know so that I will see what to do. Right. Can you guys hear me? Ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Right. Yeah. So before even we kickstart with our first item for discussion today, just a quick chat on the test. Looking at the results of test one, overall, all of you guys, I mean, all the three groups did very well, except for a few students who failed the test. I think they were less than 60. So out of 407 students, so it was not that bad. And there are also some students who got 100%. I think there were three based on the results that I can see on Moodle. So that means that some students, especially those who are still struggling with the content, um, the only thing that I believe is that those students are not really putting enough effort in terms of studying and understanding the content. Because honestly speaking, what we are doing here is not that difficult if you pay attention and if you also give yourself time to study, right? Because there is nothing new that will come into the test. Everything that will come in the test, we have already seen similar, content. So there is nothing new there. So you guys just need to make sure that you study. Now, um, the announcement that I wanted to make is in regard to the assignment. Sorry. So the assignment is available. So I think I issued the assignment last week. I don't know if it was Thursday or Friday. So it's currently available on Moodle under the assignment folder. So obviously it's a group assignment. You better read the instructions properly before you start engaging the assignment. I think you must be you must not be less than 6 members within a group. So the other thing that I will suggest you guys also, I don't know, to advise me on is that if you guys feel like you're probably having issues in forming your own groups, you guys can let me know and then I'll form the groups based on the class list. And from there, we'll be 100% sure that everyone will have a group. So that is what I can tell you about that. So if that's what you guys want, you let me know. If you guys don't want, you can create your own groups and work with your people that you feel comfortable working with. That is also entirely up to you. At the end of the day, what is relevant to me is ensuring that you do not submit your assignment alone because it's a group assignment. It's also testing your abilities in terms of relating with other students, right? So yeah, so that is the big announcement. And the deadline of the assignment, I think, is on the 3rd of October. So please make sure that you abide by that. You don't, there are no late submissions because everything will be submitted via Moodle. So once the prompt is closed, there is nothing that you're going to do. If you submit via email, I won't consider your assignment, or I'll give you straight zero, because that is a requirement that you have failed to comply with. Okay, this is one of your classmates saying that is it Mulori, saying that it's better I form the groups. Okay, if we can find a consensus on that, I don't have any issue. Before the end of business day, I will send you guys the list, and then from there you can work it out. Right. So yeah, if I can get another confirmation, if there is somebody or three students supporting this idea, we'll go for it. You can just send me a chat there if that is what you guys want. Three more people supporting this idea, we'll go for it. All right. Yeah, I think those are a few things that I needed to let you guys know before we kickstart. So today what we are going to discuss is chapter 11. So in case we finish the chapter today, so that means we won't be having a lecture on Wednesday. So that means from my side, we'll, we'll be done today in case we end with this chapter today. But if you don't finish the chapter, we will have to come back on Wednesday and then we finish it up so that you guys can go on a break after Wednesday from Operations Management 1B. All right. So in this case, I'm going to you can also use the WhatsApp group there so that you guys can agree, and then you let me know at the end of this session, should I create the groups or not. All right, so let me share my screen so that we can quickly, I can quickly share the slide, and then we'll take it from there. Let me share my entire screen. So I believe my screen is currently visible from your end. So let me go to easy transition slideshow from the beginning. All right, so today we're going to talk about supply chain management. I think in your department also, it's quietly or well related to the activities of your department. So you should be having a better understanding of the supply chain management. So you'll find this chapter under chapter 11 from the textbook, whereby you can also read it on your own to get, extra insight and all that. So this chapter is based, we're only going to focus on the theory part. Obviously, there are some, simple calculations in relation to evaluating suppliers and all those things. So we're not going to sit those calculations. So the focus will be mainly on theory. And again, theory, you guys, some of you can even explain it better than me. So as we go along, if you have any questions, you have any remarks, you have any intervention, anything that you want to add to this session in order to add value to the chapter, please feel free to unmute yourself and interrupt me at any time. So what are we going to discuss in this chapter? Or what would you be able to understand once you have closed or summarized this chapter? So you should be able to explain the strategic importance of the supply chain. You should also be able to identify 5 supply chain strategies. You should be able to explain issues and opportunities in the supply chain industry. And lastly, you should be able to describe approaches to supply chain negotiations, right? Especially when it comes to selecting suppliers or the distributors. So these are the things that you must be able to understand or to do at the end of this chapter. So let's look at the definition of supply chain. Um, of supply chain. What is supply chain? Here we have a beautiful definition of supply chain, right? It says that supply chain management is the integration of the activities that procure materials and services, transform them into intermediate goods and the final product and deliver them to the customers. I think this definition provides everything that you need to know about supply chain. And this is also where, looking at this definition, you are able to relate operations management to supply chain management. Because you can also define this from a different perspective, like supply chain is a network of a company dealing with suppliers in order to deliver goods and services to final customers. All right, so you can also define it that way. But I feel like this definition is more insightful because it provides everything that you need to know in terms of understanding the supply chain importance. Because it says that supply chain is the integration of the activities, right, that procure materials and services, transform them. I mean, in the definition of operations management, you have the transformation of the input into output. So output are good, right? Goods that are ready to be delivered to customers. I'm sure you guys are aware of this. This is part of the core activities of your department. So you should be able to understand this. So we are talking about from raw materials, right, to the company or the transformation stage until the final product is delivered to the customers. And here it says that competition is no longer between companies, it's between supply chains. So this also shows the importance of the supply chain management, which is need to be well managed. If it's not well managed, the company will never survive. So that is something that you need to bear in mind because the activities of getting raw materials from suppliers is something that need to be taken seriously, and rigorous monitoring need to also be put in place because otherwise the company won't be able to get the raw materials as it need for its survival or in order to transform them and supply the finished good to its customers. So very important. Now let's look at this sorry, this representation here, this figure here that again explain the importance of the supply management activities. What is really happening? So this is related to the production of beer, right? So here, let me take my pointer laser, by the way. So here you have this representation here that gives us the overview of all activities taking place from where the ingredients, right, are harvested, right, or from the farming until the final beer is bought by the customer, right, or delivered to the customer. So this is what is happening in the supply chain. You can see these are farmers that are working on and harvesting the ingredients that go into the production of beer. So you have hops, grains that are sorted out in these containers here. Once everything is ready, hops and grains are ready, they are now sent to the brewery, whereby they are now associated. The ingredients, hops, are now associated with other ingredients such as water and the like, and then they are transformed until the beer tastes like the beer that people drink. And in the process, once that is ready, there is also the bottling process that takes place. Once the beer is ready, now that liquid need to be bottled, right? Need to be bottled, and once the liquid is bottled, that is sent to the distribution center, right? From the distribution center, different grocery store now will come and source the beer, the bottled beer, and that is sent to the shelves, I mean, to the different stores and all that. And then you and I can go and purchase those items or the beer if you are drinking, for those who are drinking. So this gives us an overview of all the activities that are happening from the raw materials until the final product. So what is happening here in each section of the activities, right, in the supply chain, operations management is present. So that is what I wanted you guys also to recognize in this circle of the supply chain management. So this also gives us an idea that you cannot separate operations management from supply chain management, right? So that is quite critical and very important to understand. So this figure is quite important when it comes to explaining um, the importance of supply chain. Global supply chain issues. Obviously, when you are talking about supply chain, there are issues or things that you need to consider, right, when dealing with the strategy related to supply chain management. It says supply chain in a global environment must be able to react to sudden changes in part availability, distribution or shipping channels, import duties, and currency rate. So this is just a glimpse of some of the issues that operations managers need to take into account, because there could be sudden changes, right, that can happen due to external factors that are probably beyond the control of an operations manager. What do you do based on that? There could be war, right? Could be war and breaking out like that. What would you do in that case if you are sourcing your raw materials from a specific country whereby war has broken out? What do you do? Right? So these are the things that you need to be flexible and be able to react to sudden changes in the market or in the supply chain. Right? So these are the things that you can also call them the considerations, right? Things that you need to bear in mind. They use the latest computer and transmission technologies to schedule and manage the shipment of part in and finished product out. So again, the use of technology as we are in in the fourth industrial revolution, right? Um, Incorporating 4IR technologies in your business operations is critical so that you can leverage, right, the benefit coming along with technology implementation. So that is also critical. So whereby some of your product could be bought online instead of you sending an employee to a different country where you are sourcing your raw materials. All this could be done online, and that is definitely going to reduce the cost. Staff with local specialists who handle duties, freight, customs, and political issues. So these are the skills that, as an operations manager, you need to have a team, right, with an understanding on how to um, deal with customs, pay tax of the product entering your country, and also when it comes to exporting, right, finished good to your customers globally. So you need to have people with the skills to deal with customs, to handle product that you need to export and all those things. So these are the things that you need to consider besides them being issues, but you need to bear in mind that these are the issues that you are going to encounter as an operations manager. So obviously, as an operations manager, you're not going to work alone, right? You need a team, people that you're going to rely on in order to ensure that your activities can be executed smoothly. So now let's look at the concept of make or buy decisions. What is make or buy decision? Or what is a make or buy decision? Here it says that choosing product and services that can be advantageously obtained externally as opposed to produced internally is known as the make or buy decision. I don't know if you guys understand this statement. So when we are talking about to make or buy decision, so I'm gonna just try to break it down. Make or buy decision. If a company is able to make, usually it's related to raw materials, for instance, or sourcing raw material, or sourcing the ingredient. Let's say in the example of the beer production or the producing process, right? What is happening there is that you have the farming area or section whereby the ingredients are produced. Now, we have a company that is focusing on transforming hops, grains, into the actual beer. And you also have a bottling company that usually sell those bottles to the producing company in order to, fill them in so that the product can be shifted to the customers. So if the company is able to acquire a farming space and produce the hops and grains, that is what you call make. So meaning that the company is able to create the space, the capacity or in-house capacity in order to make those ingredients, right? So that's what you call a make decision. Again, that make decision has to be a strategic decision that the company need to make. And this is based on the capacity, the skills. And now, if the company is not able to do that, to acquire, for instance, a farming area or to create that in-house capacity, is going to buy. So buy here in this case now, the company is going to rely on external suppliers in order to get the hopes, the grains that the company need in order to make the beer, right? So that's why you have this concept of make or buy decisions. I don't know if that is making sense a little bit, because I know this definition here can create a little bit of confusion, but that is, the essence of make or buy decision. Is the company able to make its own product, create a capacity, right, to make the product or the ingredient, or if the company doesn't have the capacity, it has to buy those ingredients from an external supplier. And this again creates that kind of relationship between the buyer and the supplier. And how do you manage that relationship? That is another topic for another day. Now, once a company now, because you can see this make or buy decisions are somehow related to what you call outsourcing, right? Or most of these concepts are interrelated. You can always find ways to create a link between some of these concepts. So, what is outsourcing? Previously, outsourcing used to represent an entire chapter, but you have condensed, outsourcing and supply chain because you believe that they are so related. So there is no need to have another chapter whereby you are talking about outsourcing, right? So here it says that outsourcing transfer traditional internal activities and resources of a firm to outside vendors. So outside vendors here are obviously the suppliers or other companies that the initial company need to rely on in order to get its activities going, right? So it's a way of, seeding some of the company's activities, to an external company in order to get them done so that the company can now focus on its core activities. And not all activities um, should be outsourced, right? Usually there are external activities that the company feel like, okay, we can get past this activity, or we can get this activity completed by an external company without endangering the company's core operations. So that is something that the company need to really to think about, because you cannot hand out your core activities to an external or a third party company, right? So that is very important when you are dealing with the concept of outsourcing. It utilizes the efficiency that comes with specialization. Just to give you guys a clear overview of what is going on here, we can probably take an example. You see, even below they say firms outsource information technology, accounting, legal, logistics, and production. So meaning that there are a many concept or many products or services that a company can outsource. So based on its industry. Let's take an example of UJ, for instance. At UJ, we know that UJ is known around the world for teaching and learning activities, research and innovation, right? So we know about that. So these are the core activities of UJ. So it's quite difficult for UJ to get these activities, to get them done or, performed by an external company. UJ has to do them um, themselves so that they can keep control, right, over their core activities. That is important. Now, I'm sure you guys are aware of other companies here doing certain work, right? but those companies are not UJ's company. The example that you can easily relate to is the Starbucks company, for instance. It's not a UJ company. It's like a contractor. That company, UJ uses that company in order to ensure that student or staff are transported from one campus to another. It's not a UJ company. It's an external company, right? That is um, that is making sure that staff and student are transported from one campus to another. And why did UJ outsource these services? Because obviously UJ doesn't have the capacity, right, in terms of um, for logistical agreement. Because if UJ has to have a company that deals with logistics and transportation of passengers and all that, it's something that is going to become costly because now you just need to apply for certain licenses, right, and ensure that you just buy buses, right. So there are a lot of things that you just now need to get involved into in order to assure the transportation of staff and students from one campus to another. So UJ doesn't want to bother itself with that. So the easiest way out is just to have these activities performed by a third party company. So that's why Starbucks comes in, because Starbucks, they do have the licenses in terms of transporting passengers, because UJ is not the only companies that deals with Starbucks. There are other companies that Starbucks also helps in terms of transporting their staff and all that. Right. So another example that you can again relate to is protection services. Obviously, it's not a UJ company, right? It's a company that is performing a specific activity so that UJ now can focus on its core activity or core competencies, which is teaching and learning, research, and innovation. So this is the whole idea around outsourcing. Not all activities must be outsourced to another company, especially this will also depend on the industry, right? So very important. Keeping your core activities is critical for the survival of any business. Right, so now let's look at the supply chain strategies. What are the strategies, right, that we should be mindful of when we are dealing with the concept of supply chain? So these strategies are important, right? So again, for you to choose which one to go with, it will depend on your industry, the product, and probably the environment where the company is located in. So that is also important. So there are 5 supply chain strategies. You have negotiating with many suppliers, long-term partnering with a few suppliers, vertical integration. We have carry two virtual companies that use suppliers on a needed basis. So we're going to unpack each of these strategies. So let's start with many suppliers. As the strategy is telling us, it's basically, having relationship or dealing with, many suppliers or distributors. They say commonly used for commodity product. So commodity product here are initial products that the company needs to acquire, and those products are not transformed into other products. So from the commodity product, the company buys the commodity product, and those products are transformed in order to get other product or other finished good. For instance, in the case of hops and grains, those are also called commodity because a company will use hops and grains in order to get the beer out of the hops and grains. The other is, for instance, crude oil, for instance. Crude oil, there are many products that are produced from crude oil, right? So these are commodity products. There are a lot of examples that you guys can name them. Purchasing is typically based on price. So obviously dealing with a lot of suppliers to get raw materials, the focus here or the decision is driven by the price, right? So you check as an operations manager, you want to buy some of your raw materials externally. So you check which supplier is going to provide you the best, or affordable price, and you'll go for it, right? It says long-term partnering relationship is not the goal. So as long as the focus is on price, so the long-term relationship here is not important because the focus is on the price. Are you giving me something that is affordable? Obviously, don't forget about the quality. As a business, you must also pay attention to the quality. Even if a supplier offers you commodity products at an affordable price, you also need to double check the quality of the raw materials. Very important. The same way as a customer, when you are going to buy, you check the quality if you can, right? Don't just focus on the price because you ended up even spending more, because that's why they usually say that cheap products are usually expensive, right? So it says suppliers compete with one another, obviously based on the price, so that they can satisfy the actual company or the buyer. Supplier is responsible for technology, expertise, forecasting, cost, quality, and delivery. So because the buyer here, which is the actual company, focuses on the price, so the rest, the technology, the forecasting, that is, all the technology that need to be, included in the production of raw materials, the buyer doesn't care about that as long as can see the quality is good, the raw materials are satisfying and the price is affordable, the buyer will go for it. So a few suppliers, they say buyer forms long-term relationship with fewer suppliers. So again, this is like the opposite of many suppliers. All right. So in this case here, the the idea here is to create a kind of a relationship, right? A kind of sustainable relationship, so that the buyer and the suppliers cannot interact amongst them, right? So the goal here is to have a long relationship in order to reduce the cost in the long run. Create value through economies of scale and learning curve improvement. So based on this long relationship, the company are able to understand each other's culture, how they work, and help each other so that they can produce more product and generate more benefits. So return on investment. Suppliers more willing to participate in JIT programs and contribute to design and technological expertise. I don't know if you guys have already heard about the concept of JIT, which is an abbreviation for just in time. And that is also going to form part of our last chapter. All right, the just-in-time approach or philosophy. So we're going to talk about it. So again, it goes to a close relationship that a buyer need to have with its suppliers in order to create an environment whereby the need for inventory is eliminated. So meaning that the company will receive, the buyer will receive the raw materials as it needs them, when it needs them, at the specific place that the buyer needs them. Right. So we're going to talk a lot about this in chapter 16. That will be our next chapter. Cost of changing suppliers is huge. If we were going to have a live session, I mean, in person's session, I was going to ask you guys to explain this statement to us. But I know we are online. If I ask you guys, okay, can you please explain this? You guys will just keep quiet and then the clock will be just ticking down. All right. So they say cost of changing suppliers is huge. In the strategy of few suppliers, meaning that the company has selected a few suppliers and established long-term relationships, right? So in terms of signing the agreement, they have created an environment for trading, for doing business together, right? So that takes long, it takes effort, it takes also money in order to create such an environment. Now, if the company now need to, uh, bring another few suppliers on board in order to create a long-term relationship, that become costly, right? So doing the same thing, spending money, which is not beneficial for the company, especially if the company is finding some kind of value in the current few suppliers that it's dealing with, right? So that's why we have this statement here saying that cost of changing suppliers is huge, because once you have spent on creating relationships, signing agreement, probably training each other and all that, and then now you have to change, create, establish another relationships with another companies, it becomes a costly exercise. So that's why you have that statement there. So the other um, strategy here is what you call vertical integration. It's a developing the ability to produce goods or services previously purchased, or buying a supplier or a distributor, right? So developing a in-house ability, right? Instead of purchasing um, raw materials, right, from an external supplier, the company develops that ability of in-house production, right? That could be, I mean, we have two scenarios here, right? When you are developing, as a company, developing an ability to produce your own raw materials that you need in order to produce your finished good. That is another strategy. We'll talk about it now. And now, when the company also develop an ability to, um, instead of relying on distributors, it's able to create an environment, right? The capacity to deliver goods to customers on its own. That is also another concept, right? So, but all this falls under vertical integration. So the company developing its own in-house capacity in order to deal with the supplying activities and the distribution activities. So in the vertical integration, the concept that I was talking about, there are one that you call integration integration. So these are the two facets of vertical integration that you need to understand, because I believe you'll have questions here in the upcoming test that will be related to this. linked to the vertical integration. So you need to understand how concept operate. So in the concept of vertical integration, when you are talking about a forward integration, we talk about a company acquiring or purchasing a distributor or a dealer. So meaning that that dealer now will be performing under the control of the company. So there is no need now to deal with external company to deliver goods to customers or to service the customers, right? So all those companies that probably previously the company used to deal with in order to assure the logistics of the product from the distribution center of the company to its customers now it's done by the company itself, or it has now purchased that distributor, which is now operating under the company, right? So that is what you call a forward integration. So finished goods are now directly delivered to the customer by the company itself. Now, a backward integration is when a company now purchases a supplier, right? Supplier that deals with raw materials. So again, if you go back to our example of beer production, right? So meaning that the company will now own the farming activities, right? Usually is purchasing the farming activities from an external company so that that company can now become part of the actual company, right? And now the company will have to control over its backward activities and forward activities, right? So this is what you call a vertical integration. So it has two facets, backward and forward, right? So that is what you need to understand. So again, if you reflect or you push your understanding a little bit further, you can link this to some other concept that you have already discussed. Okay, Kyoritsu here is a Japanese business model characterized by a network of companies with close ties, often cross-sharing holding relationships. So this again can also go back to the backward or forward integration, or you can also go back to a few suppliers. So that's why I usually don't stress too much on Keiretsu networks because it's mainly part of a few suppliers strategy and also the vertical integration strategy, right? So companies just coming together and creating an environment whereby they can work and help each other so that they can grow together, right? Usually, they even share some kind of benefit, right, in their relationships. So not really, something that you need to worry about, but this is linked to a few suppliers, vertical integration. It's say members expect long-term relationships and provide technical expertise and stable deliveries. So these are the things that you have already spoken about in the few suppliers strategies and also in the vertical integration. Because when a company now in the vertical integration, for instance, backward, a company purchasing a supplier, so the supplier now becomes part of the company. So that creates an environment where initially that company was operating externally, but is now internal, so in-house production. So they are sharing everything. So that's why I'm saying that Kereti is part of the a few suppliers activities and vertical integration. Now, let's look at this concept of virtual companies. I'm sure some of you, even now after discussing this concept, you're still going to make the same mistake. if you are asked to define or describe a virtual company, some of you straight away they will go for a company that operates online, right? I mean that is the first idea that will come to your mind, right? Virtual companies are companies that operate online. I'm saying this because this is what students are always telling me, in the test. In this case, it's a different story. When we are talking about virtual companies from an operations management perspective here and the supply chain management, it's a different story. You say a virtual company relies on a variety of supplier relationships to provide services on demand. Okay, obviously companies rely on suppliers in order to get their raw materials and all that. In this case here is different. I will explain why. I say exceptionally lean performance, low cost, capital investment, flexibility, and speed because the reliance is now on external supplier relationship. They said the clothing business is an example of virtual organization or virtual companies if you want. And it goes further. It says designers barely manufacture their own design. Manufacturer rents facilities, lease sewing machines, and contract for labor. So here when you are talking about a virtual company here, the actual company does not get involved in the actual physical production of its prototype or of its product. The company is only involved in the designing stage, right? In research, innovation, right? Now, once that is done, research, innovation, the design, the prototype is ready, the company now will contract an external company in order to perform the actual manufacturing of the product or of the design. And this is mainly in the case of, uh, designing industry or clothing industry. You also have other company who are also skimming this virtual um, companies industry or strategy, sorry. And I put some examples here for us just to reflect on. You have Nike. It's an American company, right? A global sportwear brand. So Nike is only involved in the designing, research, and the innovation of their product. Once that is done, some of their products are now produced by external companies. Some of them are located in China, Vietnam, mostly in Asia, right? So they don't get involved in the actual or physical production of their product, right? This is done by an external company. Apple Inc., as you guys know, an American company. Most of the Apple products are manufactured in China and I think recently in India. The company in China, I think, is called Flaxcon or Flaxcon something, right? That is the company that produces Apple's phones. And if you check, if some of you guys are using, iPhones and all that, you check at the back date, it will tell you that assembled in China or elsewhere. Usually, it's rare to see an iPhone assembled in America. But currently, with the tariffs that the U.S. president is imposing on other countries, I'm sure Apple Inc. will be forced now to invest in the US and manufacture their product there. So there are a lot of examples here that you guys can, can 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 read and do a bit of research on in order to understand. So this is the idea around virtual companies. So again, virtual companies is not, a company that only operate online only, right? Some company are in the virtual industry, right, or using virtual strategy, but it doesn't mean that they don't have physical representation, right? So how do you manage the supply chain? Say managing the supply chain. So there are a few things that you need to bear in mind in order to have a flawless supply chain or to have a fruitful supply chain that is going to add value to the organization. Say mutual agreement on goals. It's essential that mutual understanding of the mission, strategy, and goals of participating organizations be established, right? You cannot enter into an agreement with a company without aligning your goals, understanding your desires. You can't. You have to make sure that those things, or core things of an agreement are, discussed, and then you guys are aligned as businesses before you enter into an agreement. If your goals are not aligned, your way of working, is not aligned. I mean, it's quite difficult for a company to enter into an agreement with another company on that basis because it's not going to work out, and it will be like a waste of time and a waste of money. Trust. So obviously you cannot also enter into an agreement um with a business or get some of your activities performed by an external company without trusting that company, right? This also goes into our personal relationships, right? If you don't trust the person, it's difficult for you to have a friendship relationship with that person, right? So you need to trust each other, right? Align your goals and then, have some kind of transparency. And then from there, you guys can enter into an agreement. So, and you also have to be compatible, right? If your ways of working are not aligned, again, it's going to be quite difficult for you to enter into an agreement with an external company. For example, you are operating in an halal business, for instance, and the other company is not. In that case, it's going to be quite difficult for you as businesses to be able to work together to align your goals or your cultures, right? So these are the things that you need to consider before entering into an a relationship with a specific supplier or with a distributor, right? Very important. Now, let's talk about the concept of e-procurement. What is e-procurement? I'll just give you guys an overview as you have already seen. Once you see e-procurement, so that is means that procuring products, raw material using internet, so electronically using internet. So this comes with its advantages in terms of probably reducing the paperwork. Everything is now done online. There is no need to physically travel, maybe from here to China to purchase your raw materials. All could be done using internet, right? So that is the concept around e-procurement, right? Using internet in order to purchase maybe commodities, specific products, right? So vendor selection, we are almost done, guys. So if you are done today, that means that Wednesday we are not meeting. So let's just try to do our best so that we can finish up with this chapter today, and then Wednesday we we don't need to meet. But I think we are almost done. We are just left with a few slides. So vendor selection. It said for those goods and services a firm buys, vendor must be selected, right? So, and what is a vendor here? A vendor here could be suppliers. Vendors here could be distributors, dealers. So dealers are now the one are in contact with the customers, right? And suppliers are the ones supplying the ingredients or the product that the company needs in order to get them transformed and get the finished good, right? So in all this, vendors must be selected, right? Because a company to operate alone in the industry is quite difficult, right? Quite difficult. So there is reliance on other companies, suppliers, or distributors. You see, this process considers numerous factors such as strategic fit, vendor competence, delivery, and quality performance, right? And the other thing is that this part there are also some calculations that could be used here in order to evaluate the vendor or the supplier or the distributor. Based on the evaluation, now the company can decide on whether to enter into an agreement with a distributor, a dealer, or a specific supplier. And from there, they can now give training to each other because it will depend. The company might be having specific need, right? And it has a kind of expertise in that sector. It can provide training to the vendor here, to the supplier or to the distributor to ensure that the activities are performed according to the company's requirement. All right. So all this negotiation, evaluation, vendor development are part of the vendor selection. So meaning that there is a kind of there are activities that need to be performed before entering into an agreement with a supplier or a distributor. Very important. You cannot just enter into an agreement with an external company without evaluating that company, without assuring that that company is going to meet your requirement, without also aligning your goals, right? Because this is going to be very important at a long run, right? Otherwise, your company is going to suffer some losses that you'll regret. Right. So the rest here is just talking about vendor evaluation, vendor selection. So you guys going to read that on your own, just a few concepts. And if you want to get more insight, you can go to the textbook and then you get more understanding of this concept. And also, if it's not clear there, I'm always available for discussion. So feel free to come and see me so that we can interact. It's always good to engage, right? Especially if something is not clear, you can come and see me and then we're going to discuss. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure you are happy that we are done. So this is the end of this chapter. Please feel free to ask a question now. We still have a few minutes to go. So you can have a quick discussion before we go. Remember, this is our last session now before you guys take that sharp recess. So just on this, guys, this is directed to your class rep. Your class rep is bothering me like no one's business. I don't know.
Sir,
Yes.
do you need me, sir?
Hey, is that you?
Yes, sir.
Ish. You sent me a message. It was when? It was on Saturday, ne?
Yes,
Eh?
sir.
But
Yes, sir.
imagine, I didn't even read your message. Let me just remove the recording because there is no need for us to record here. Just a second. I just want to remove the recording because uh, yeah, no. What I wanted to say is that I think you